It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. If you're new here, I'm glad to have you. This podcast was formed to collectively build a bank of stories from normal people sharing their nonlinear paths. Unfortunately, social media paints a narrow picture of what success looks like. So I'm doing my best to spread the news that changing course is common, and you don't have to know what you want to do the rest of your life at 18. If you're a parent worried about your young adult and whether their path is leading them to success, you're in the right place. I'm a therapeutic consultant who works with young adults to connect them with resources that'll help them get back on a better path. So if you're curious, let's chat. You can schedule a free consultation through my website, which you can find the link for in the show notes. Today, my guest is Dr. Jack Stoltzfus. Dr. Jack has been a licensed psychologist for over 40 years and has worked with over 2,000 young adults, parents, and couples. His PhD is from the University of Wisconsin, and he's also the author of the book, The Parents Launch Code, which you'll definitely want to check out. Keeping this short and sweet because I want to dive right into the interview with Dr. Jack. Here he is. All right, Dr. Jack, I'm so excited to have you as a guest on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm excited because I want to hear a little bit about your personal story, but more importantly, I'm just excited for my audience to learn about you as what it is that you're doing professionally, which obviously also kind of aligns with the title of this podcast when we're dealing with young adults that are trying to find their path. Sometimes it's a little bit winding.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So tell our listeners, where did you grow up and kind of what was the messaging that you were getting about what you were supposed to be doing after high school?
Well, I'm actually living in St. Paul, Minnesota now, but I'm an East Coast person. I've kicked most of my accent, but it's still it'll show up here and there, but grew up outside of Philadelphia and then Ocean City, New Jersey. And my experience was going off to college. Yeah, my brother went to college. I said, well, I want to go to college too. So I went off to college for 4 years, came home in the summers and worked. But there was never a time in which I thought I would live at home after college. That was something that never crossed my mind. I would have a job. I'd go to a job as soon as I finished college, and that could be any place. And I went to school in Indiana, so could be in the Midwest or whatever. So, and I can guarantee you my parents didn't have any expectation that I'd be living at home either. So that kind of mindset has changed from both the parent side and the young adult side, I think, today. So,
yeah. So did you end up graduating then from school and moving back in with your parents?
No. If I came home, they'd say, what are you doing here?
And to your point, that is exactly I feel like parents nowadays, it's the exact opposite. It's like, when are you coming back?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that parents, and I think parents can tell kids, they're young adults. I mean, we talk about kids 18 to 29. I'm thinking that mainly age group. Hey, we're always here to support you. We always love you. We always have a place in our heart for you. But it doesn't mean we're going to have a place in the house for you. We're going to expecting you to kind of move forward with your life and become more self-sufficient and independent. Now, I'd argue that you could do that at home while living at home. And, the rest of the world has a different model than the United States in that the rest of the world, or a lot of the rest of the world, is characterized by multi-generational housing arrangements. So the young adults are living there, maybe even married and have their kids, but they work and they contribute. And I wouldn't say they failed to launch, Yeah. But if you're sitting at home and you're not contributing, you're not paying rent, and you're not helping out around the house, that's a problem. So,
yeah. Avoiding actually being responsible in some way, shape, or form, whether it's financially or towards your independence. Okay, so, and we're going to talk more about this, but let's go back to your story. So you clearly did not move back in with your parents. So what I'm looking for, honestly, is I would love to hear kind of how your journey led you to what it is that you're doing now, because I want to make sure that I'm putting a spotlight on that like what you're doing is most exciting to me. But I always love kind of selfishly hearing, like, how did you even get where it is that you are now?
Well, there is a backstory to this, and it goes back to my kind of estrangement from my father, my distance from my father. Particularly during the adolescent years, there was very little communication between my father and myself, and what communication took place was usually critical by him. And then I went off to college, and one time I came home. I may have been in graduate school at the time. I had a little kind of chin strap beard. It's about all I could grow at the time. But he refused to talk to me when I was home for this visit. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if that causes him to shut me out, what would happen if I ended up in prison or something? He'd never talk to me again. So a lot of insecurity about that. You know, I came to understand, I come from Amish tradition a couple generations back. And I think my dad was unconsciously shunning me because he was upset about how I looked, even though the Amish wear beards and stuff. Anyway, so that caused me in my graduate studies at Wisconsin to try to define healthy emotional separation from parents, and did my dissertation on that work, and basically defining a healthy emotionally separated young adult is one who has autonomy from the parents, but also connectedness, also has a positive connection with the parents at the same time. So then fast forward about 10, 15 years ago, I'm a parent of young adults, and now I'm kind of experiencing that perspective on it. And I started seeing more and more people in my private practice who had problems with their kids, stuck at home, and sometimes it's mental health issues, drug issues, or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, there are no resources. So I ended up deciding to specialize in that area. And I think I have some young adult experience that speaks to some of the pain or difficulty of young adults. And then I understand something about the parent experience too. So fortunately, my 3 kids are all launched and, self-sufficient at this point. So.
Well, and you were kind of actually, I think, and maybe you can correct me if you think I'm off base, 15 years ago feels like you were on the front of the curve of this kind of, I don't want to say it's an existential crisis, but it has evolved into more of a presenting issue in the US of young adults being dependent on parents longer or cohabitating with them longer. Mm-hmm. And for you to actually specialize, that is my entire caseload. That is my practice. That's my niche. 15 years ago feels like that was ahead of the curve. Am I off?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I think the pattern began even before that. And I would like to confess that I as a boomer have been a big contributor to this. Because my generation was the one that started the trophy for everybody and the concern with the self-esteem of our kids. Quite frankly, an overinvestment in the happiness and success of our kids. And that then has led to that continued sense of responsibility for their happiness and their success, even as they get to be 18, 20, 21. I mean, this is where you get the helicopter parents, the parents going to the teacher at college with the student, arguing the grade. I mean, just over-involvement in the happiness and success of the young adults. And I think that has continued and maybe even increased with Gen X and millennials. And now we may be starting to see that a little bit with the Gen Zs now, too.
Yeah. So, yes, there's a lot to unpack there, but just for the audience to hear this, you are based in Minnesota, and so you are licensed as a psychologist, and you still have a private practice in the state. So if anybody is in Minnesota and seeking out a clinician for the exact reason in which you kind of provide services, that'd be a great resource. You've also, just as of this year, branched out to provide parent coaching to families outside of the state. So obviously that doesn't require licensing, but in terms of the expertise in the work that you've been doing, working with parents of young adults, I can see how that would be an added service for people outside of the state.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, when we talked in the past, if I had published my book, that most recent one, it's called the Parents Launch Code, Loving and Letting Go of Our Adult Children. So that's a great resource, kind of a guidebook for parents. How do you successfully launch a young adult? Follow these specific practices.
And we'll make sure that we have links in the show notes for that.
Okay.
And so let me ask you this question. And I'm going a little bit off script because I usually ask people like, do you see yourself as successful based on your journey? And I'm happy to have you answer that question. But I am right in this moment. Of course, this is me kind of shooting from the hip, hearing the title of your most recent book. How do you think, as a provider working with parents of young adults, how do you define success for young adults?
Well, I think that it would be a combination of what one would think of traditionally, which is that they are self-sufficient, responsibly independent. But I also would add the characterization of having a positive connection with parents. So that distinguishes me a bit from a lot of the writers of development for young adult development. Pretty much they say if you're out there living on your own, you have an income and you're independent, you're making your own decisions, you're launched. Then you're a successful young adult. But I think unless there's either a reconciliation with the parents or some kind of resolution of the issues with the parent, there's a good chance you're going to end up in private practice office, mine or somebody else, complaining about the parent. My parent didn't do this, my parent did that, and frustrated and angry at the parent. And that's not a healthy place to be. So I guess being able to take care of yourself and take care of your family and your responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm hearing kind of the overarching, when we talk about kind of wellness in general, like mentally and emotionally, you're in a balanced or good space.
Yeah.
Whether that's in relationship with others, whether it's platonic, familial, or your love interest, it feels like that's where you're saying you are quote unquote successful as a young adult if you are in those relationships. And it's not to say that they aren't without, what relationship doesn't come with a give and take, right? It always requires, kind of being attuned, it's work, but yeah. I'm hearing that. Okay.
I think I pick up on your point of being in healthy relationships. Historically, and with some bias, we've said a successfully launched young adult is married and has children and has a job. Well, I don't think that's necessarily the litmus test of being launched and being healthy. You could be in relationships. It doesn't necessarily require you to be married and have kids. That's how we've kind of thought about it in the past. So,
yeah. Yeah, in 2025, for sure, that feels like that as a ruler or a measure or a marker is definitely further down the path than it used to be in terms of young adulthood. But I imagine you still see it regardless.
Yeah, it's actually a good trend right now. The first years of marriage for males is 30 and for females is 29. I think that's a very positive statistic for young adults because they're taking time to figure out who they are, get their brain fully developed by the time they're mid-20s, figure out what their career is, what they want to do, and then get into a relationship or build this relationship that they hope will last for a lifetime. And we've seen some of the divorce rates going down these days too. And I think that's as a result of people taking a little longer to figure out who they want to spend their life with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a product of that myself. I will just put myself out there. Okay, so I'm just kind of curious, thinking about, like the clients that are on your caseload right now, those you are coaching and also providing clinical support for. Are there any themes that are popping up for parents like right now, like as we are heading into the summer? I'm just kind of curious if there's anything as a provider that you're seeing that feels like, oh, this is kind of new, or this is just really common, whatever this thing might be.
Well, I don't know that there's any kind of cyclical kind of theme in the parenting that I'm seeing. I mean, obviously, it's right now we're talking about graduation. So it is a time where parents and young adults will typically separate. It's one of those times, okay, you're graduating from college or graduating high school, you're going to college. So it's a great opportunity for parents to reinforce their love and their affection for their young adult, to value how much they value them and their gifts and talents, and also encouraging them in terms of their independence and their self-sufficiency and moving forward, whether it's going into college or maybe after college, going off to a job. So,
okay, great. That's awesome. All right. So as you were just answering that, I was thinking about, here you are like professionally totally zeroed in on this like area of expertise, which is honestly music to my ears because it's the population that I work with as well.
Sure.
And you're also a parent of 3 young adults who have successfully made it in the world themselves as they've individuated and they're doing their own thing. Is there one piece of advice? And I feel like sometimes when I say this, it just feels loaded and really like what I want to drive people to actually just work with you, because everybody's story is different, right? And so like anything that you share might be like, it could be appropriate for one person and maybe not for another. But having had the experience personally and professionally all of these years, is there anything that you haven't already shared during this interview that you feel like would be important to kind of leave as almost an imparting piece of advice for any parent right now that's listening to this podcast?
Yeah, and this will link back to that sense of estrangement from my father. That estrangement reflected a sense that I wasn't loved, that my dad had never expressed his love to me. There was that rejection that I experienced. So I thought that I was unloved, and I needed to kind of address that. Fortunately, there was a reconciliation between my father and I, and he did express that love for me before he died, and he died at a fairly young age. So that's really important to me, and something that I say the number one practice is tell your kids how much you love them, that bond of love for them will never be broken no matter what. That, and it's distinguished from disapproval for behavior, but I love you no matter what. And that message creates that foundational security for the young adult to be able to risk a bit. I look at it as similar to the early attachment stage where the toddler's moving away from the caretaker, the primary caretaker, the mother, whatever, and looks back and feels secure enough to explore the outer boundaries. And now you've got this young adult driving away and moving out. And the sense that I know that my mom and dad, if we have a 2-parent family, love me no matter what, can be the one thing that is most important in their darkest moments when they doubt themselves or they might have depression and suicidal thoughts. Okay, I know my mom and dad love me. That can be the most important and sustaining message that a parent can give.
Yeah. Unconditional love, period. Full stop.
Right.
Okay, I love that. Well, Dr. Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on the podcast. Anybody that's listening, please, please, please pick up his book, the most recent book, because that sounds like, honestly, like the best parent code to just like live by if you have an emerging adult. And we'll make sure that we still have all other information, like contact information, links to your website, et cetera, in the show notes. But thank you again for being a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, that's my website's parentslettinggo.com. So
perfect. That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.